Not in the right room, you may want to leave because we're running short on chairs. And my Twitter handle is Dave Reed. So I'm excited to have you all here and kind of show off what we've been doing at Palantir, which is the Drupal company that I work for. And kind of some people ask, well, what do you do at Palantir? And we tend to focus on working with higher education, institutional, museums, cultural. That's not all we do, but that's what we'd like to focus on. And this has come as a result, Workbench is a result of kind of working with those clients and their needs, and kind of what we've learned and what we've developed. So I'd just like to show that off. So kind of one of our examples was the University of Chicago Law School, who needed lots of content management. They had lots of editors. They had lots of different sections on their site. And Ken Rickard, one of our engineers, developed the menu node edit module. I don't know, has anyone used that before at all? No? Good. He will even admit that it pretty much sucks. And he was limited to the best thing he could do in that time. And kind of by writing that, we kind of learned, hey, we've got this kind of feature that clients want to use. We want to make managing content easier on their sites. Let's do something about it in a reusable solution. So there's always the common scenarios that we've got with our clients, some assumptions that they have about Drupal that are not really true at all, and the fact that they want to manage the content on their site. And they want their editors to manage the content. They don't want their editors to manage Drupal. They just want to manage content. And it's not really possible. So let's kind of see some assumptions that people have that we've encountered with a lot of our clients. So yay, we've launched a site, and we've got tons of fun content on there that they put in. Maybe they need to fix a couple of things, and maybe need to make some changes. Well, how do we make those changes on the site? Because Drupal only really has one live content for a node, and you're only viewing that. You can have revisions, but there's really only one live thing, and that's always what you're currently working on. So yeah, it's kind of a big problem that people can't fix and edit stuff without keeping the old version being the one that people are currently viewing on the site. And we kind of have this with the Art Institute of Chicago. They have a very large editorial team that they like to review the content made by creators to make sure that it fits the voice of the museum, make sure and just kind of put it into guidelines. How are they managing that workflow? Are they editing the content in Word? Why are they doing that? Why can't they just do it in Drupal? How long are they editing it for? Is this editorial process a week long? Is it a month long? That kind of thing. How are they submitting for review? It's kind of one of the problems they've had. Another thing is kind of related to editorial access. So kind of in this example, you've got someone who's maybe an intern, someone that maybe doesn't know the site quite so well, but you want to get them involved in creating content, but you don't want to let them have full reign over the site. And Drupal by default, you can only restrict them to certain content types, but you give them the create article permission, they can make any articles they want and put them anywhere. And so, yeah, it's a problem. Another thing is this relates to organization of the website. And maybe some of you have companies that have this kind of large organizational chart for who does what, who manages what on your website. It can get pretty complex. It's not so simple as Drupal out of the box is. One of the websites that we developed was for Barnard College. And they have different sections on their site. And they made it a little bit hard to read, but they've got philosophy, they've got architecture, and they've got professors that manage those sections. And this is kind of where we first came up with Workbench, because it was a Drupal 7 site. And they gave us the permission to kind of experiment and work on this and give them a solution. And we think it came out pretty well. And so the other problem is And you may have heard this in the usability results. You create a piece of content. Where did it go? How do I go back and edit that content if it's not promoted to the front page? You can go to the admin/content/no to view every single piece of content on your website, but you can't actually filter it by who made it. Like, you're just listed with all that piece of content. You have to try and search and find which one you made. It can be a complex process. So the first step that we had, you have to figure out how your users and roles are going to interact on your site, because it's really, really important to making sure this goes right. So for example, we've got a museum website. We've got 3 people. We've got Jill, George, and Kelly. Jill is going to be the contributor who's actually writing new content. George is going to be an editor who can basically edit anything in the Brook Museum kind of category. He can edit anything in the exhibit section, in the library section, and there's like a gift shop section too, where people can create content about what's in the gift shop, that kind of thing. And it's just important to quantify who does what, because then you translate that into roles. So then we have an exhibit staff that can manage anything in the museum collection, new exhibits, that kind of stuff. We have a library staff. So it's just important to make this step. So kind of now that we've done a little bit of an intro about what we need, we're just going to do the demo and show you what Workbench does. So switch over. All right, so here's our little Workbench demo site. Like, it's a museum, kind of as we had it set up. And I'm logged in as Jill, the contributor. So we've got a menu for exhibits and the gift shop. We've got some content on the front page. And so Jill, I'm going to show you first the Workbench dashboard. This is kind of one of the nice features for all your users on the site. Which of course doesn't show right because its screen is squished a little bit. But we kind of make this the home landing page for anybody that's working with content on your site. So we've got your profile, so you can view that, edit it. We've got a listing of the content that you've actually edited by last date that you actually edited. So you can go back and easily get to that just from your Workbench dashboard. And below that, we also have just all content on the site too, which is helpful for editors as well, because we didn't want to completely remove that. And on this tab, we've kind of got a shortcut to the Create Content screen, which is just nice because it's one step closer. And some of the cool things too is we don't just have node types on here. We also have a Workbench Media module where we'll have on here Create Media as well. So like we're kind of trying to help solve the problem of where do I go to create a file upload. And we kind of debated about adding a shortcut for creating a block here, since that seems to be a common problem in the usability results. So it's just a nice shortcut for them to go to here. Got a little handy file listing that shows all the files that are uploaded on the site. We'll maybe figure this how to make this more useful, but it's just a listing right now. One cool thing that you can see what nodes the files are attached to, so you can quickly go and review those. And then we've got a sections tab, which I'll kind of go into, because Workbench has the concept of sections, how we kind of organized it into exhibits and library and gift shop. So Jill can work with anything in exhibits, she can work with library visitors, or the gift shop section. And she's limited to that. And we'll kind of show you more about that later. And then we'll skip that for now. So here we'll go home. And back to our Workbench page, because we want to create some content. So let's create a new exhibit. And go Colorado. I'm probably missing spelling stuff because I can't see it very well on this side. And here we select which section this goes into. So we're just going to say it's an exhibit because Colorado is awesome. Yay. Yay. And so this is just kind of a standard node edit form. And we're going to press save. And so now we've kind of got something different here. What you would usually see on a node is you'd see view and edit. But we've kind of changed that around. We're making the concept of revisions in core drafts. So we've got the current draft of that Jill created. We can see it's in the section exhibits. It's currently in draft mode. And we can also say, I want to push this to needs review, just right from there.
Cool.
It's really handy for that person. And if they want to go back, they can edit that same draft. It'll create a new draft or a new revision. And add exclamation points. And so we still see that it's in draft mode. If we were to switch, well, here, let's just go to the exhibits page. This is just a view that shows exhibit nodes. We don't actually see it yet because it's in draft mode. But we go back to my Workbench, my drafts, and DrupalCamp Colorado is awesome. We go back. We also have a moderate tab that kind of shows the draft history for that node. And it kind of gives also a little summary. So we've got our first revision, when it was done, who it was done by. We've got our second revision here. That's our current one. It's still unpublished. And we can also change the revision state as well. I'm going to switch to the administrator here. So I've been kind of talking about the draft states. And these are completely customizable. You can make them anything you want to be. By default, we offer 3, which is draft, needs review, and published, which makes sense for most use cases. But you can enter it anything. You can add it in the middle. You can delete any of those custom ones. And so then we have the concept of state transitions. So like, we want to move something from draft to needs review, or needs review to published. And we explicitly state what transitions can be made. So we couldn't go from draft to published. It needs to go into review first. And this is actually role-based or permission-based, so you can assign different user roles the permission to move something from draft to needs review. So like if you have a contributor, they have that permission. Or your editor user roles have the needs review to draft or needs review to published, because they perform that operation. And we also provide a handy little check permissions to make sure that you've actually set it up correctly, which sometimes can be a little bit tough. So we say that we've got our contributor role, and we want to check that they are able to moderate content properly for the exhibit node. And it said, hey, I've got some problems here. You may want to go fix these. So it doesn't automatically fix it, but it's a nice way to just kind of sanity check for you. So now we'll log in as George because he is my exhibits editor. We just go to the home page. So again, we don't see it yet because that DrupalCamp Colorado is still draft. So we're going to go to our editor workbench. He's got a different tab now. He's got a needs review tab.
Cool. Which
we can go there. Which the Colorado one isn't there yet because it's not actually set to needs review. But we've got my cat's name is Rodney, so I use him in a lot of dummy content. And it's all his pictures on the site. So we've got this exhibit that is currently in needs review, and we'll just publish it. So it's been published. Go back home. Go to our exhibits. Rodney the cat is there. And we can actually go to Drupal Camp Colorado is awesome. And notice I can't, since this is in draft mode and I'm the editor, because this has not been marked as needs review yet, I can't actually go to published yet because whoever made that content has not said, I'm ready to publish this yet. But the editor can still edit the draft as well. So the concept of sections here is defined by the Workbench access module, which I'll kind of get into the architecture a little bit later. But it's really cool because you basically define sections for your site. And they can be based on anything. It can be based on taxonomy or menus. And you can define, per users or per roles who can edit in that section. So like I said, George is an exhibit editor. So he is listed here under the exhibit section. And Jill is too, since she can create content in that section. But if I were to go to gift shop, George is not an editor there. And he cannot actually edit or change the status on anything in the gift shop section. So that's just kind of a little, yes, in the back.
You said that these are based on taxonomy.
Mm-hmm.
You create the taxonomy terms and vocabularies first, and then they appear as sections, or would you, how does that work?
You would want to build your taxonomy out first, and you could add new terms to this, because we actually have a feature that if you add a new term, we will say, we'll automatically put this into section assignment for you. You can disable that too. But yeah, it's just kind of nice. You can go as you go on the site, so, or you can predefine it. So. Any other questions about the demo part?
I don't know if it's quite about the demo, but if you have a couple nodes that you're working on that are pulled into view, can you see a preview of unpublished or needs review nodes in that view?
No, because actually I'll mention later in the architecture, Workbench is not an access control for listing module. It doesn't handle anything with that. It's only based on actual workflow permissions like creating and editing and deleting. It's not based on listing. So that's why we try and have the Workbench tabs and not actually have it on the site, because that would actually make it more complex. All right, we'll go back to the presentation here. So a little bit of history about this with some of the stuff that we've done in the past and a lot of the complex workflows that we've had with clients. One of these is the Foreign Affairs website, which is a really great, fun project that we had. They have this concept of regions for all of their content. So you can view articles related to Denmark or Finland or Sweden. And they've also got editors for each of those sections. So they've got perhaps John, who is an expert in Swedish culture, who should be an editor in that Swedish section. Or maybe there's someone who's an expert just in overall Europe culture, who's an editor just in the Europe section, who can manage anything below that as well. Because this is hierarchical based as well. So if someone is assigned a editorial position in Europe, they can also manage anything below that as well, automatically. So again, we go back to an organization chart on who can edit what. So we've got all these different levels. We've got all the different countries, regions of a country, regions of a continent, and then all the countries underneath that. So Workbench is something that works really well for them. Going back to the University of Chicago Law School with the menu node edit module that Ken wrote, not the most efficient thing. But it was kind of served as a trial basis for Workbench. It's based on the menu system. So each menu is a section, and you can assign people to those sections. And we kind of had to work around some core issues. It didn't really work exactly great, and if you have a lot of these sections, it really tends to slow your site down. And so Ken feels really bad about writing that for the people that needed it. And he's actually been working on an upgrade path for menu node edit to move to Workbench now, which is really nice for when people are moving to the 7. So here, he also really did not spend a lot of time in the UI because he is an engineer. He'll admit it. So yeah, it wasn't really the best, and it was just kind of complex and thrown together. And Workbench kind of gave us an opportunity to involve usability. So we involved some experts and said, hey, we've got this problem. We want to give people a manageable way to edit it as compared to kind of this Drupal 6 style and stuff that people really still can find confusing. And one question you only have is, well, there's existing solutions for this. Why didn't you guys use that? Why did you write your own? There's lots of excellent modules out there. So there's organic groups, there's taxonomy access, all that kind of stuff. The one thing to note is that stuff like taxonomy access and taxonomy access lite, it is just based on an individual record and not automatically hierarchical. I don't know if I pronounced that right. Oh well. So if you assign a user to a term or a section to a term, you can only manage that term and nothing below it. So it's kind of a limitation of the design of that. And a lot of these too, they use different interaction patterns, they use lots of different terminology, lots of different user interfaces. And Workbench kind of gave us an opportunity to kind of unify it all together and make it into a nice polished project for people to understand. And we've really gotten lots of good feedback about the fact that it is basically ready and polished and all together. So, I'm not sure what that slide is for. So a little bit more about the architecture. So, like we said, we've got the access settings, which can be based on taxonomy or menu. This is actually pluggable too. You could base it on organic groups and integrate it that way if you wanted to. And so you select, based on taxonomy, you can select the vocabulary that it's based off of as well. And like I said, we've got the automatic assignment as well for editorial process, which you can disable or not. Yeah.
Can you use both taxonomy and menu at the same time? You have to choose for all of Workbench if you want to get it.
Currently, you are locked to one behavior.
So are you setting up like one workflow for multiple content types, or can you do multiple types for different types of content?
Currently, we are locked into one workflow for all content types. It's definitely in our plan to try and be able to customize that per content type. We have lots of good plans for how to take this further. This is what's kind of get the initial step down and cover our 80% of use cases that we've had with our own clients to be able to solve it. Yes?
Do you foresee possible maybe contrib modules to facilitate migration from maybe taxonomy access control to Workbench, or content access module to Workbench, things like that?
From Workbench module itself.
So can you go back a few slides? You said competing, like other, why not use instead? One more. Yeah. So like migration paths from these systems to Workbench. Like, do you think that's?
I mean, anything's really possible.
Yeah. Okay.
It would probably be up to those. That might be tough to get those modules to write an upgrade path for us.
Right.
So it may be something that it's a one-off module to help do that process. So, yeah.
With content access, I know oftentimes it would stick one row in node access per node.
Mm-hmm.
So on a site with like potentially millions of nodes, you could really kill performance by turning on content access. Does Workbench kind of aggregate some of that? So is it still a one-to-one node and row and node access, or since you're kind of aggregating on taxonomy, is it one row per taxonomy entry?
Well, the neat thing is because we don't have to control listings of content, we don't need to touch the node grant system.
Oh, okay.
Which in Drupal 7, there's the hook, the new hook node access, which controls individual access to a node. and it's dynamic, so we can just do it on an individual basis and not actually have to store anything. So we can just check that, check the term of the section that the content is assigned to. Can the user edit that section? If so, okay, allow them access to this node to be able to edit. So yeah, that's one of the definite advantages versus these modules is we don't even need to touch that the node grant system. So, forward again. So again, you're able to assign your editors to each section. You can do it per user. So like we said in that use case before with your intern or the grad student, you can say, okay, I want my grad student to only be able to edit stuff in the gift shop and nothing else. So that way they're kind of isolated and aren't able to create articles and exhibits where everyone, the more visited portion of your site. And also you can do it by role. So in this example, we had a contributor role and an editor role. So we've got our contributor role is assigned to the museum base term. So they can edit anything below that. So it's kind of nice to be able to not have to assign them to each individual thing. You can just say, I want to do the top one. So yeah, that's kind of that process. And adding a user. And you can actually select which terms or which categories, sections you want to be controlled by editorial access. So if you're actually using this for real taxonomy and you didn't want to actually use library as editorial control, you could just disable that for that section. So it can save you some time. So like I said, this actually controls permissions on an individual node on the create, edit, delete, and moderate basis, and not on listings. So that's one of the advantages. And it has lots of APIs too. If you're developers and you want to extend this, there's lots of alter hooks, there's lots of different provider hooks for access control. Not really going to go into that because it's really detailed, but it's there. We built it in so that you can basically do anything you want. If you've got one website that needs a custom solution, you could probably fit it into this. And so our integration that we already have, Workbench works with Workbench moderation, which is the one module that allows you to do the different states and transitions. It already works with views, so that Workbench tab and on that dashboard, that's all basically views powered. So it's nice to be able to list content by the draft state. So, and like we said, the Workbench access module already integrates with menu and taxonomy, which is good for the 80% of use cases, what people need. We've got a little roadmap for the Workbench access module. We want to be able to assign people multiple, a piece of content to multiple sections on a site. So say you've got something and you want to assign it to the libraries and gift shop section. I don't know why you want to do that, but it's not a very good example. But people will want to do this, so we're trying to add support for this. And like you said, we want to make sure we can configure this per content type, because it is basically global all throughout the site. So, and adding support for additional modules like organic groups to integrate their access system with this. We've got an open issue for that as well. So now kind of just going over our moderation, the Workbench moderation module. So again, we've got our draft states, draft needs review and published. And we've got our transitions that we can do. And again, that nice, helpful check permissions. So kind of example of the node edit form, or this is the content type edit form. So this is on our exhibit content type. We've actually said, okay, so we've got new revisions enabled. We want to enable moderation of those revisions, so that allows Workbench moderation to control that. And we set a default state, which is draft. If you want to set a default to needs review, you think people make content and they're ready the first time it's done, you can do that. You could also set it to publish by default, which is how Drupal currently works. So you could have it published and someone could mark something in the back as needs review if they see something wrong with it then. our roadmap with Workbench moderation, to be able to use it and control it for content type, edit our default states, which we actually have put in finally now. We'd really like to integrate with scheduler module. So, and this is something that a lot of people asked for and we're working on. So you want to say, I want to move this content to the published state, but I want to do it a week from now. Currently, we can't do that. So we're working on it. And also, you know, some more funky workflows, you know, not exactly one state together. We want to support that as well. Some other things that we are headed for on this, since this module's only been in development for a year, which is kind of short for something this big. We're working on getting an install profile set up, which I'm actually been using for the demo today. And actually maybe getting a demo site up where people can just go and try it online, which would be nice. Again, with the scheduler integration, workflow notifications. So maybe your editor sets the content back to needs review. It'll message the author, hey, your content has been set to needs review. You should probably come take a look at this again. We're working more with trying to manage files in a more usable way, because right now media module it's great, but it needs some improvements. And again, we've got lots of stuff in the issue queue as well for improving the module. Yes.
Do you have rules integration for state transitions or triggering events when state changes happen? Because that would allow people to kind of do a lot of this stuff themselves without it being baked in.
Yeah, we don't currently. I believe there's an open issue in the moderation module for that. I don't think really a lot of us have worked on it yet. We're trying to still get in the polish phase and get a release out. But rules would be definitely something to look at because it definitely fits in this kind of flow to be able to customize. Yeah.
This looks really cool. Is there any plans for porting it back to D6?
Not at this time. A lot of it's based on the, I know, I'm sorry. Use the menu note edit module. We'll apologize in advance. A lot of it's based on the limitations of the Drupal 6 API. There were a lot of improvements made to the node access system, made by Ken himself, that made this possible. So, I mean, it's not really in the process.
It seems kind of baked in that this is about sections.
Mm-hmm.
Have you looked at not having it baked in about sections? I mean, most of the places I do workflows are not about editorial workflows, but approving, you know, other sorts of things like a change order or a purchase order or, you know, ticket states, those sorts of workflows.
Well, the great thing is you don't have to use the Workbench Access module. And it doesn't have to be on everything. You could just use the moderation module on something for the states. So you don't have to use sections. That's just, our use case has been those large organizational clients that needed that.
Right, no, I need the sections from the editorial or reviewer standpoint where you have, you know, only certain people in certain roles can approve change orders for this department. So it still needs that concept, but not so hard-coded to website sections idea.
Got it. And that's where probably the pluggable system comes in, where you could just define how that works yourself. Because you can define how it responds to the node access yourself and everything. So, yeah, it's possible. Is there a question over there?
That was the rules one.
Okay.
One quick question. I assume this is the way it works, but I can't remember if you mentioned it. Does the publishing workflow, does that apply to the latest revision? And so if there's a change that's made to an existing node, if the previous revision remains published while the latest revision goes back and forth?
Yeah, so I maybe didn't touch on it enough. We really use the concept of a live revision and what's currently being worked on. So anyone who's on your site that's browsing will always see the live revision, and there could be X number of current drafts and works in progress. that once it's made and once it needs review and once it's been published, that takes over the live revision then. So it kind of solves that problem of how do I fix something without actually, you know, unpublishing in the know and just take it down for a bit or something. So, yep, in the back.
You said you don't control access to listings. I assume that when I am building a listing, which is a view, the way you do control access is that there's a views filter handler that is looking at that status.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay, cool.
Yep. So kind of what we want to do also is involve the community in this process, because we're not the only ones that have these problems with our clients. You guys have probably had it too. You know, and it's defined by the use cases that you have. We want to make sure that we can maybe adapt Workbench to fit your solution. So let us know in the issue queue. Hey, I've got this complex use case. Here's kind of my problem. You know, how could we start to figure out how to work around it? And join us in the issue queue. We're always open to patches. We've got like a 6-person team working on Workbench. We call ourselves the bookies. So we're nerds. I mean, we've got Robin and Colleen, Ken, Rebecca, and Steve, all on IRC all the time. You know, ping us in IRC, say, hey, I've got this problem. Yeah, let us know. So we want it not just to work for us, but work for you too. So are there any other questions at all? No? All right, so evaluate.